Good morning, Nikki. The pool looks great. I'll be over shortly.
Good morning, Gary. Yeah, it's been fun, especially with the heat lately.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
chilly in the morning, but it heats up.
In Phoenix, where heat storms there get up over 120 degrees, and people have solar heating on their pools, they run them at night to radiate the heat off into the night sky and try to cool their pools down. So we haven't quite gotten there yet, but
no, not quite. And this one's not heated, so it's pretty frigid until it starts to get about 100 degrees out. How are you?
I'm good, doing good.
Doing good? Awesome.
You look good.
Yep. All is well.
What's the hat?
Oh, this is my Cabo hat. So I remembered a hat this time. Can you believe it? Oh, good. Yeah. So I went to Cabo for my friend's 40th in August of last year.
Yeah, we're gonna have to remind people to wear their hats.
Exactly. I know. I couldn't believe I remembered.
Sure, I have a Cabo hat somewhere, but I don't know where.
Yeah, they're pretty common. Cabo's a good destination spot, or it was.
Yeah, some bar there that's got a big open deck. Yeah, I can't remember the name of it.
Oh yeah.
On the main road.
Oh yeah, that main drag is pretty fun.
Yeah. So shouldn't have mentioned it if I can't think of it. It's like telling a joke and forgetting the punchline.
I know, right? That's all right. Still waking up.
Well, since we've got a good amount of people here, I'm going to go ahead and start our
Daniel, you're still upside down. So
some days are like that.
Hello, everyone. How are you doing?
Excellent. Welcome. All right. Welcome, everyone, today to CleanStart ToDos. We've had a little bit of a change in our program. Jeremy Spillman, CRO and co-founder of Hank, is going to be presenting Hank today. He's stepping in for Zachary Denning, the other co-founder of Hank. So I'm looking forward to this.
That's great. Jeremy, I don't know that we've met before, but thanks for doing this.
He was at the Clean Tech meetup, and he also went with us with EY to the Kings game.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and he has a great background on a lot of batteries, so you'll be interested on a lot of the stuff, Gary.
Yeah.
The Kings won that game, so it made it even better.
They did, yeah. Just please remain on mute. Raise your hand. As you, here's just a kind of a Zoom overview. Quick shout out. We want to say, we support change and everything that's happening here. I want to bring attention to, we have a recent blog put up by one of our associates on our recent green drinks that we put on, where we had a discussion about how sustainability and social equity go hand in hand. Also, I want to recognize that there are VC funds that support equitable development in Sacramento, led by people like Mariah Lichtenstein, who have supported startups all across Sacramento and the state, especially in clean tech, through things like CalSeed. So these are funds that are moving Sacramento forward. I want to thank our sponsors, Blue Tech Valley, SMUD, Sac State, and Weintraub Tobin. These are the sponsors of the Clean Tech meetups. And with our pivot to doing more things online, I want to recognize them as sponsors as on the CleanStart ToDos. If you like what we're doing, a lot of this is a lot of work. Please, just buy us coffee if you support it, and that a little bit of coffee goes a long way, trust me. And with that, if you're curious about these slides, I'm going to go ahead and share a link to these slides so you can follow along right here in the chat. So because all these things that I'm showing you, they all have links. So you can click on them and find out more. So where that comes in handy is right here on the announcements, where we've got videos from SMUD for helping your business. 1 million cups here in Sacramento and Chico. Sac State's virtual entrepreneurship toolkit returns next week on the 29th. Sign up to get your spot. Also, I want to highlight the SBDC of Northern California. They have a cash flow basics today. They also have other classes that if you sign up and watch their calendar, you can stay on top of things. Speaking of important calendars, Blue Tech Valley, one of our supporters, you kind of see right here, they put together a calendar of all these virtual events that they have to support entrepreneurs in the clean tech and ag tech community. And also one thing I really want to highlight is this right here. If you click it, it takes you to Empower Events. So Empower Innovation is a networking site for clean tech companies and startups. And they have a calendar of all sorts of events that can help you. You can see CleanStarts on here with our Clean Tech Spotlight, CleanStart ToDos, and next week our Clean Tech Meetup. But there's other support you can get like funding hacks. And the great thing right now is pretty much everything's online. So you can go check all these out. You don't have to worry about whether it's in LA or anything. You can go and get their information and apply it right here in our region and grow. So make sure to check that out. And also, if you are like many of us, like many of us, and you're wondering, what do I do during COVID? How do I stay entertained? I'm going to do a selfish plug here for Summer of Spark drive-through. So Summer of Spark is Sac Valley Spark, Burning Man nonprofit in our region that supports the Burning Man principles. And every summer they put on an event called Summer of Spark. Well, because of social distancing, they said you can't do that anymore. Well, we're like, no way, we're going to still do something similar. So you can go buy tickets and you basically drive through an art plaza where there's performers, art pieces from Burning Man, and DJs all happening right here in Sacramento, out in the city of Rancho Cordova. Go ahead and get tickets to that, support a nonprofit, and have something to do. All right, I'm gonna make this go full screen again.
We'll have to bring some pictures back from that and show us on that.
Or you could go do it.
Yeah, that sounds great, actually. I've been to Burning Man, so this would be really fun.
Oh yeah, we'll definitely check it out. Go into the slides and click that right there.
Okay.
And if you're wondering what is CleanStart doing during all this, well, we've got, well, first stay connected with us socially through Empower and through the Empower Network and all these other sources. These link to our shared sites. And what we have coming up really soon is the Spotlight or Clean Tech Spotlight Night, where we have clean tech companies that are pitching to investors. This is a lot like the ConX night that Hank pitched at back in December, where we have a panel of investors that will listen to companies present. 3 of those companies are Terzo, Repurpose, and Simply Global, which it keeps auto-correcting on. But if you want to see their videos, you can go here, and also their blogs that we've put up if you're curious about some background on the companies. Additionally, next week we've got a really cool meetup, electric nights and electric bikes with Rumble Motors, Glide Cruisers, and Mars Cycles. Rumble Motors is looking to relocate into Sacramento because they're still very small and they're looking for a place in the United States to build their manufacturing. And it just so happens that a bunch of them live in Sacramento. So we're really excited to have them and hopefully watch them grow here, along with Glide Cruisers, who's been making electric kind of scooter cruisers in California for the past decade or so. And Mars Cycles, who Casey Mars has just finished his prototype electric motorcycle out there in Rescue, California. And without further ado, I'd like to welcome Jeremy Spillman of Hank. Go ahead and take it away.
All right. Well, thank you for letting me fill in for Zach at the last second. Always good to talk to you guys. So I think today what we're going to focus on is what the heck happened over the last couple of months and what you can do to really stay active and work through times that we haven't been through before. So do I click through or?
Oh, I can click for you.
Yeah.
There you go.
So there's me. So quick background on Hank. I think we know, most of the people on here, we've done quite a bit, but, we started the company back in 2017. We're lucky enough to receive the Cal Seed Epic grant after that to really build out the system that we have in place. And what that system is a software optimization tool for HVAC systems in commercial office buildings. Our focus is not only improving the efficiency in which the buildings are ran. You could have the shiniest new piece of equipment installed, but if you don't have it properly configured through the software side, then you're never going to get the full benefits of those efficiencies, whether it's just energy savings in general, tenant comfort, and then the big new thing, and we'll get into that as we go through, is indoor air quality, which has been on the minds of everybody from college campuses, office buildings, retail. Everything going on is indoor air quality has always been something that we've delivered, but has become a massive selling point, during the COVID pandemic. So what we're trying to do is bring AI software to the building optimization range. And I think you'll find a lot of funny things when you really look at it. A lot of the buildings, we're going through kind of a fundraising round ourselves and looking at it as $11 trillion worth of commercial real estate in the US is still run off of Windows XP operating system. So I think that should tell you that if you're looking at, no matter how new the equipment is, if you run it off of old software, you're never going to get the true value of that. So what hit the next button? So welcome to hard mode. It was funny is kind of the quick backstory on Hank is, we had a really strong end to 2019. We were able to raise a substantial seed round with some great Sacramento investors. We won the SAC Biz Journal's Innovation Award for Sustainability. We really started commercializing kind of mid 2019. We were able to prove our thesis out and then started seeing a fantastic growth, not only in California, but we got a project with the Department of Forensic Sciences in Virginia, projects in Texas. And we're just seeing some really cool growth. And we also had capital to kind of play around with our business model as well. Really figuring out what's the fastest way that we can get to hyper growth, to really provide value to building owners without having them have to spend capital dollars, right? It's always been so tied together in these efficiency projects is, your ROI is 3-4 years. You have to accrue capital dollars, especially in smaller buildings that don't have the same kind of, 480 million CapEx budget for the buildings that, the larger ones downtown do. And then COVID hit. We remember very well is we had a couple projects cancel out. We had, some time on our hand. The real people that we sold to were commercial office buildings and college campuses. Well, I think we all know what happened right around the end of March with that. People stopped going into office buildings and everything was turned to online education. So we had to figure out what do we do, right? It's you've got, investors looking at you. We've got staff that we need to support, and we have, ourselves as looking at the owners of the company is where do we take this thing where we know it has value? How do we push through that part? And that's when it kind of got to hard mode is survive. And really that's all I can preach is no matter what kind of came in there was pushing forward. And that's what we've been able to do. So if you want to go to the next slide, the big, we've seen it. So we were part of the Launch Accelerator back in early 2019, which is where we got the funds to really commercialize. And we stay very, tight with all those, startups through Slack and other channels. And it's just been tough, right? We're seeing so many of these pre-seed companies that had a very limited amount of runway. How do they adapt, right? Because your runway basically is tied into the revenue that you're supposed to bring in to show investors to prove out your thesis so that you can either go for that seed capital or figure out what other investment strategies you want to make to be able to extend that runway out and, become a profitable company. And, we've all seen the numbers. I think this morning, the Wall Street Journal, they said 70,000 startup employees have been laid off during COVID, which is, an astronomical number when you really think about it, especially considering, those startup companies probably could have anywhere from 10 to 15 employees. So the impact of that is not only on the employee themselves, but really what was, the companies and how they're going to have to restructure. And so, most companies, like I said, they were hedging on the economy in small rounds. We were in the highest economy that you'd ever seen. It took us all of one meeting to close it took us all one meeting to close our seed round back in late October. And now looking at where we're going is, what kind of funding vehicles people are looking for now is completely changed. And then, the markets that how do you get back to, right, are the ones that, everybody's seen the Zoom stock fly up, which is great for all that tech stuff. But, a lot of the startups we're looking at ways to, change the retail space, looking for changes like that. And then with us, our focus was so driven on commercial office owners. And for the months of, I would say, April to basically starting end of March to late May, it was really, really challenging to just get a building owner on the phone because they had to worry about so many other things. They had to worry about, are they going to get, tenants to pay? How are they going to handle their balance sheet? Are they going to be able to pay their mortgage? All of these different things. So that's when I think internally, Zach and I really figured out, okay, let's say that this thing goes on, and who knows, this thing goes on is such a silly thing that we say is every month, we learn something new, but Thomas, if you want to go to the next slide, is figuring out what do we do now? And this would be the thing that I don't want to say necessarily saved Hank, but has put us in a situation coming out of June and July have already booked more projects and buildings than we have, possibly in the history of Hank. And that's what we did is we figured out what do we need to cut? How do we extend our runway? No matter what, right? And unfortunately, we did have to, furlough a couple of people. We've had to find that balance and are looking to bring them back on now. But at the time, it was survive, survive, survive. You look at your numbers every day, and you have to be realistic with them. You can't, with the uncertainty that's out there, that was especially, again, as a office and college kind of campus focused tool, we don't know when things are going to come back. We didn't know when things are going to come back, so you can't kind of look at the bright side. You have to take very, very hard looks, and that's what we did. But the biggest thing that came out of this was looking at our product and saying, okay, what's some of the feedback that we've gotten from the market in the last couple of months, right? What are we hearing from people now? What are we reading in the news? What can we add to our platform that can make it part of people's return to the offices, because they're eventually going to have to go back. And that's when we developed our indoor air quality dashboard, and as well as some other things that we've gotten requests from Hank. Since we don't have our software engineers actively working on new projects, we're able to find the time and pay a little bit of our technical debt that we had on cleaning some stuff up, as well as adding these new features that have really pushed us out of the gate now that, again, I would say right around the June timeframe is when we just see massive growth. And we've got projects now booked out all the way until October, which is something, again, we've never really had a backlog here at Hank, which is great to see that people are not only looking at ways to cut operational costs, understanding that the commercial real estate market has changed, but also looking at ways, how can I make our tenants feel safe when they do return? And so much of that is about the indoor air quality requests that have come from the World Health Organization, the CDC, ASHRAE, which is kind of the leading institute for HVAC. And then, finding new markets to drive revenue, right? We are starting to look at, we really wanted to focus on that low hanging fruit, right? That's what you go after. You go after your clients, Well, this time I think opened it up a little bit, where we were in one college campus in the Bay Area, and now we've used that to really expand, saying, okay, these people are going to, the facility managers, the admins, they're going to need ways to say, hey, here's something that we're doing, right? Being active in that. The same with medical office buildings. We've got our first pilot with Sutter Health starting next month. That was something that we thought was going to be much further down the road. The same with municipalities in the city of Roseville. It was something that we're like, okay, now that we have this kind of new objective that we can get, that's not just, hey, we'll save you energy, we'll save you energy, we'll save you energy. Now we can pitch it, we'll save you energy and improve indoor air quality. And that's really got us to bite into these new markets that we thought would be a lot more down the road for us. So I think it's just looking, again, it kind of goes back to the first thing, is find ways to survive, right? Find the people, find what's going to connect them to your product, even in times of uncertainty, where, again, in a very affected market like commercial real estate, how can we push that through, right? How can we still provide value? Nobody wants to spend money. And I think it's really coupling your value props to what's going on currently. I mean, we've changed our outbound strategy, leading with, Zach's been writing articles. We've been developing case studies, white papers, really focusing on what's at hand and what people can kind of dig into right now. because you wake up in the morning, you hear about COVID, you read the paper, you hear about COVID, and it's really hard to, I think, get people to look back at like, well, how is this going to affect your sustainability policy? How is this going to affect your ESG? How are we still going to get to this, carbon reduction goal? This morning that I read SMUD wants to pull it up to 2030 rather than 2040 as initially put there, is how are we still going to be able to meet these goals in a time when a lot of innovation is focused, so closely on how do we get past what's in front of us with COVID right now. And I think that's what has been massive for us is, I don't want to call it a pivot, but it's understanding, it's listening to the market, it's staying in touch, it's calling your customers. And that's really, I think, how we came up with the indoor air quality was we had a couple of meetings that were still scheduled. We had those, and they kind of asked us, well, what do you guys do with this? And again, indoor air quality is something that you should be maintaining in your buildings at all times anyway, but there's no Title 24 police. Title 24 being the California commission saying, here's what your building standard needs to be. Nobody's going and actively checking on this. No systems out there have an easy way to display this data. And since it's, for us, something we were already doing is maintaining 110% of that indoor air quality through all of our customers. So being able to push that new feature out as a spearhead rather than a nice to have, again, that would be the biggest thing for us, is finding new ways to connect to our market. And then if you want to go to the last slide.
That one is your last slide.
Oh.
You might not call it a pivot, but I would call that definitely a pivot. And it's actually, I think, pretty awesome. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, Jeremy, great presentation there, and
Thank you.
a lot of lessons. But and then you may have said this, but I may have missed it. Where are you on fundraising now? Are you still looking for funds, or have you put that aside until we have some more openings on COVID? Or
that's the $3.2 million question. So right now, I mean, our initial plan was to raise during the summer. We postponed that, and we've been able to extend our runway out mainly with book projects and incoming revenue. Our goal is to still start fundraising by the end of August. I know that we are in, you go from not only COVID times to an election that's going to be pretty polarizing. I think we can all agree that will have, longstanding effects, but our goal right now is to let our revenue speak for ourselves. And I think that we're going to be in such a positive place with our MRR by the time that we get to that fundraising point, that going in with the confidence to do that is something that we're going to, we go from kind of being the nice idea to saying, no, we've established this, our theses are proved out, and then here's what we're going to do with that money. And I think taking this time too, Zach and I have probably prepared more like we're going for a Series A or Series B than we have a seed. So going out there and saying, here's exactly what we're going to do with our money. Here's our business plan. Here's our hiring plan. Getting much more detailed rather than just trying to prove a thesis, right? Because that's typically what seed is. It's like, hey, okay, these guys have got something. Their technology works. All that's nice. And now let's go prove it. But our thing is like, if we can go and put all the data, the revenue together, like we're ready for more of a Series A and try to get those smaller seed investors, we think that's going to be a big upper hand. Give us the leg up. I got my analogies mixed up with body parts. I apologize. But yeah, so I guess very, very long answer to your question, Gary. We are still planning on going out to getting our seed round. We postponed it from summer, and we'll be starting to really get after it late August, early September.
okay, great. Thank you.
I have a question. So you guys have put a lot of effort into creating kind of, I guess, case studies and white papers on it. When you guys were first starting out, was that kind of your plan, or did you kind of realize that now with this downtime, we can just lean more into that?
It was always it was one of those things where you've got to, what was it, Mike Tyson, everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the face, right? So, I mean, that's really where we were. We knew that we had a massive gap in our marketing. Zach is a genius engineer and I can do sales okay. So we really have always kind of put something like from that as our real strategic points. And we knew that we needed help with marketing. So I guess what we had to do there was, instead of bringing somebody on because we didn't have the money to do it, we just had to bootstrap it a little bit and kind of put it together. I did get a lot of help from my wife, who has her own digital marketing company. So I guess I cheated a little bit on that. But overall, it was really just kind of, it was always our plan. We just had to change the way that we approached it. We knew that we needed tons of marketing help, and our plan was to hire out. But instead, we used friends and family, and also we were able just to kind of have to build it ourselves.
We have a question from Eva Shepard. How many employees do you guys have? Did you have to lay anyone off?
We did. Unfortunately, we did have to lay one person off, and it was one of those things we had just, it was a bummer. We just hired him because we were seeing the influx of new projects. And then we had, 2 or 3 projects that were kind of put on what I would call permanent hold. Where they're like, hey, we still want to do this eventually, but obviously we have too much going on. So unfortunately, we did have to lay somebody off, and right now we're at 6 full-time employees.
And on the marketing campaign, what was for the air quality? What was the pitch around it that Hank provided on air quality?
So the big thing with indoor air quality is it's really much more difficult to achieve than you think, right? It sounds silly, but it's only really made up of a few things. It's made of how much outdoor air you're bringing in as opposed to how much indoor air you're recirculating, how many air exchanges you're doing per hour, and how many outdoor air exchanges you're doing per hour. So on the basis of that, it's something that Hank has always done. But with the indoor air quality, there's no product out there that really controls it, right? If you went to a standard system, you would have to, and again, I don't want to get too in depth, but standard systems are lock it out. And when you lock things out, it tends to damage, not only it damages equipment, but it's also going to cost you a lot more energy. So since we're able to modulate everything in real time, it was able to, again, kind of go in there and show people that you no longer have to worry about indoor air quality. Hank is maintaining 110%, and you can look at any time throughout the day to see exactly where your building is, as opposed to the ASHRAE standards. So I think that was the big thing, was you don't know right now if you're maintaining it. You think you are, but there's no way to actually show it, and there's no way to insure it for your customers and your tenants. But with Hank, we actually insure that, and you can look at it anytime and see what makes that up, and then draw comparisons like average buildings and everything like that.
We have a question from Eva Shepard on, I guess, who you're partnering with and how that's working. Eva, do you want to ask the question? Eva is from Chico Star.
Sure. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Hi. I don't know if my video's on or not, so I'm kind of.
It is.
Okay, it's via phone. Sorry. Good morning. Good presentation. Yeah, I rattled off a few questions. One of them was, have you thought about partnering with other service providers to commercial real estate or MDUs? We
have, I think.
And I might have missed that part of the presentation.
It's something. No, we didn't go over it. No, so it's something that we've actively. It feels kind of like our unicorn that we continue to chase, right? Is how do we really fit in with the rest of these organizations? We do have one mechanical engineer in Sacramento that goes out and kind of is a partner in those services, but it's almost counterintuitive sometimes for the typical HVAC contractor to go out and try to sell software that is in parts replacing some of the services that they offer. Because one big thing of Hank is you're going to get less nuisance complaints, is what they're called, right? So they're not having to send a truck out to make a small adjustment that Hank can do on the fly. And their goal is typically, let's sell them new hardware, right? We installed this thing 8 years ago, and once the useful life of it kind of wears out, then you get all the different controls contractors going in there, let's rip and replace your system. Well, with Hank, we don't need that, right? We do very much the opposite of saying, listen, equipment doesn't degrade after 8 years, right? You're fine. The reason that you're seeing your energy savings from that initial build out, go down is you've had 30 different people try to operate the system, and nobody's able to make real-time changes the way that Hank is, based off of predictive analytics, outside, information. So again, kind of like long answers, that is my number one thing that I've got to figure out, is how do we make it more attractive to partners?
Because if I'm Honeywell, I want to buy you. If I'm Trane, right? TRANE, whatever, right? They too have adopted a similar, model to what I overuse as the cell phone model: sell the hardware and continue to sell the services. So to me, you're just another service layer, right? So, I don't pretend to know your business. I'm just trying to take a look at it from that. Oh, it's too bad Emilio just left. I just saw he hung up from the phone, because I was like, so once you get in the door with Honeywell and whatever else, then you need to also talk to IntelliSea is what I was going to say.
No, I think that you're 100% right. I do really think that is kind of the future. One thing that we also see at Hank is if we could be some type, because while we do manage the software, we also have, alarms saying when a piece of equipment goes down, is being
Right.
kind of controlling the supply chain there as well, because if a Honeywell or Trane or Siemens, there's such a, fragmented market that if we could go in there and, send an email alert to the Trane rep saying, hey, this controller is down on building 102 that's in your, service division, you can, reach directly out to them. Exactly.
Yeah, auto dispatch. Right.
Exactly. And I think that's where we see like the big time future of the company going as we continue to.
Interesting.
I have one more question before we start going to the wrap up from Eugene Lee. He's at the CEC and he works a lot on the buildings. I think you've probably met him, Jeremy.
I think so.
Regional air quality management districts may be a great resource to identify unmet needs and goals. I know you've talked with air districts, I believe. Have you guys?
I don't believe we have, no.
Okay.
Yeah. Hi. It's districts have to meet goals, and they're very sensitive to what kind of tools, I would imagine, and improving their districts. That's what they're authorized to do and responsible for. So I think this is a great idea of how to explore opportunities and kind of partner and make everyone better, right? Public and private.
So air districts typically have reduction goals for their district that they have to meet based on emissions inventories, and a larger portion than people really often appreciate of emissions are building emissions. I think someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think their building emissions are second to transit and personal vehicle emissions. And they're even ahead of power generation emissions. Someone correct me if I'm wrong on that, but that's if I recall correctly. So that's, I'll shoot an introductory email to our local air resources board for you, Jeremy, on that.
That'd be great, thank you.
Yeah. And
I think this is also a pathway to kind of push equity issues also. So keep that in mind. We have those kind of goals too, and I trust that they have to be very sensitive to that too.
That's another thing that's a great point on there is the equity in air quality emissions. So they basically rank what they're going to spend money on by the total emissions reduction, and is it impacting the communities that are most underserved, or is it supporting them to make sure that they don't aren't left out of the discussion and that they have equal access. So with that, Jeremy, I'm going to go ahead and let's see here. Oh, apparently there was one more. Wait, am I going backwards? I'm sorry, Jeremy.
It's all right.
I was, okay, my bad. I will thank you for attending. Make sure you check out our Spotlight Pitch Night. I'm going to share some links in here to our meetup and Spotlight Pitch. Go and register for those. Always check out Empower Networks right here and the happy hour that Startup Sack's putting on. Also, if you really like this and want it to kind of continue forward, I'm going to put a link to buy us coffee through our PayPal. We always appreciate any support that we get through there. And with that, I want to give additional thanks to our program sponsors, Hacker Lab, Moss Adams, and EY, and recognize our community of partners, a lot of them who showed up today, from Green Drinks to Chico Start. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing. This is officially the end of our scheduled program. If people do have additional questions for Jeremy, I'm going to let him decide whether he has time to stay around and answer any. But yeah, you're free now to get up and, as Laura says, move about the cabin.
Yeah, right. So
Um,
Jeff Macon joined late. Jeff, do you got anything to shout out there on things that are going on at BTV that people should be especially aware of?
Hey everyone, yes, thank you Gary and Thomas and Jeff Macon from Fresno State Wet Center, Blue Tech Valley, Valley Ventures. And the thing I'm excited about right now is the Valley Ventures Accelerator, our fall cohort, and I'm shaping those up with 14 semifinalists and getting them down to the 7 finalists.